He doesn't use us because we're able. He calls us because He is able. Well, in these first several Bible studies in Exodus, we're really slowing down and digging deep because there are treasures to be found that you may just skip over. And I want to title this study, Uncommon Grace, from Exodus chapter 2, verses 16 through 22. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. The shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and saved them and watered their flock. When they came home to their father, Reuel, he said, "How is it that you have come home so soon today?" They said, "An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds and even drew water for us and watered the flock." He said to his daughters, "Then where is he? Why have you left him? Call him that he may eat bread." And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses his daughter Sephora, and she gave birth to a son. He called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have been a sojourner in a foreign land." From the miracle child on the Nile, to a life in Pharaoh's palace, to a murderer and exile, you look at that arc and you would think Moses' story is done. He was the promised child and he blew it. But God had a plan for him. And it's not the end of the story. That's not who God is, and that's not how He works. We see that all throughout Scripture. Abraham panicked and had a child from a woman who was his servant, not his wife. David committed adultery. Jonah resisted God's call and ran in the other direction. Peter denied Him. And yet God had a future plan for all of them. That doesn't mean that we should take His call for granted, but none of us can say that we deserve God's favor or a place in His work. God is a God of uncommon grace, and He's not done with Moses. Moses doesn't languish and die in the wilderness. Moses' heart for justice that caused him to wrongly kill an Egyptian now causes him to defend women from shepherds who are keeping them from getting water for their father's flock. That the women are at the well when Moses is there is all part of God's plan. None of this is an accident. God is in the process of rebirthing Moses' story and his youthfulness in his plan. Moses is taken into this priest's home, begins to live with them, marries one of the priest's daughters, and becomes a father to a baby boy. There's no way you would have predicted that this is where Moses' story would go. And you and I wouldn't tend to think that God would still have any intention to use him. But this is where we are confronted with the humbling truth that God never calls us because we're worthy. He doesn't use us because we're able. He calls us because He is able. And His grace is patient, and His power is infinite. And He can use whoever He chooses to do whatever He calls them to do. You see, the story of Moses, as we will see, is far, far from over. And no matter what your track record is, your story is far from over too. None of us stand before God as worthy. None of us stand before God as deserving. None of us has everything we need to do what God has called for us to do. But we don't have to be that, because God meets us where we are and empowers us to do what He's called for us to do. Don't let guilt and regret make you a spiritual exile. Don't run away from God. Run to Him in all your failures and weaknesses and watch what He will do.